Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's session by Life Counts and Skin and Hair Care. Every one of us here are worried about our skin and hair and try to keep it as healthy as possible. This session will help you all clear all your doubts regarding skin and hair problems. Our team of doctors will be sharing medically sound and effective tips on skin and hair care with special attention to acne, dandruff, and other conditions. This session is going to be conducted by Dr. Sushma Jaiswal Meher, Dr. Anisha Ramit, and Dr. Shrita Iyer. So before we begin the session, let me tell you about wellness and managed care at Life Counts. Life Counts is a brainchild of Dr. C.H.S. Rani, which provides ethical, relevant, and empowering content digitally to health-conscious Indian netizens. Each piece, that is the content at Life Counts, is crafted with deep research by a team of doctors, nutritionists, and counselors led by Dr. C.H.S. Rani. At Life Counts, we are committed to offer medico-driven, personalized recommendations for elevating and bettering health. So to know more about wellness facts and daily tips and tricks about managed care at Life Counts in the form of blogs, videos, infographics, etc., please connect to us and follow our Life Counts page on Facebook and Instagram. Now let me introduce you to our first speaker, that is Dr. Sushma Jaiswal Meher. She's a BHMS by profession. Dr. Sushma has a varied experience of active clinical practice since over 20 years. She successfully treated various individuals and has been conducting wellness trainings. She's done her MS psychotherapy, allowing her to understand the psychology of individuals and guide them better towards wellness management. She's also done her PGD, Hospital and Healthcare Management, facilitating dispersing knowledge better. To add up, Dr. Sushma has also successfully completed her program on enhanced leadership capacities and potential among professional women from IIM Ahmedabad. With this, I hand it over to Dr. Sushma. She's going to be speaking about basic skin and hair conditions and like acne, dandruff, and many more such conditions. Handing over to you, Dr. Sushma.
Thank you, Preeti.
Yes, one second, stop sharing my screen. 1 second, stop.
Thank you, Preeti, and good evening to everyone. Unfortunately, Sir cannot join today because he has some connectivity issues. So I will be taking a short and very impactful presentation which he was going to take for y'all, which are basics of skin and hair. So he told me that, tell everyone that before you go to a doctor that I have a hair fall, I have a dandruff, do look at this presentation, which will give you a lot of insights that why skin ailments happen, why hair ailments happen. I'll just share the screen. Preeti, is it visible?
Yes, it's visible, Dr. Sushma.
So, usually when we ask the non-medical especially that which is the largest organ in the skin, we all know like heart is an organ, lung is an organ, intestine is an organ. So non-medicals usually typically say that maybe lungs because there are two of them in the body, or they say intestine because it is almost 30 feet long. And actually the largest organ in the body is skin. Yes, few know that it is, but there are very important facts about the skin which I want to tell you all. It is vital and largest. It covers the entire outside of our body. What does it do? So it protects us from bacteria, viruses, and injuries. It has a surface area of almost 1.5 to 2 square meters. That is almost 16 to 22 square feet. And the skin is about 2 millimeter thick and weighs approximately 3 kgs in an adult. So, even if someone knows that it is the largest organ of the body, there are so many facts about the skin. Hair. So now very few people can connect that hair and nails both are part of the skin. Okay, so they are called appendages of the skin. So skin, hair and nails together are actually the skin, which very few people can relate and understand and know of. And how many hairs on the head? So almost 1 lakh hairs on the head an average person has. So, like for heart, we do so much, it is an organ. For intestine, we do so much, it is an organ. But for skin, what do we do? What does our skin require? Nutrition. See, every day what happens in a body, there is a wear and tear. Few cells die naturally and new cells form. Similarly, hair fall happens. So like every day, there are few hair which will fall as a part of this wear and tear and new hair will grow. So falling of almost 100 hairs actually is normal. So you will see some hairs on the pillow or while you're taking a bath, there will be hairs in the sink. But unless it is excessive, it doesn't require treatment. Okay. So like every organ I mentioned, they require something. What does skin and hair require? Nutrition. Each single hair requires and each millimeter of the skin needs nutrition. So if you have any problem of the hair, skin or nail, nutrition is of paramount importance. That is what our skin requires. That is what our hair requires. That is what our nails require. And concept of hypernutrition. I wanted to take this in little detail that, we all know nutrition is a part of the daily life, but there is something called hypernutrition. Like I told you that, our skin is almost 22 square feet long, right? We have 1 lakh hair on the head. So imagine that you have a planter at house, okay, which is 22 feet long and you're going to grow plants in that. So you can imagine what kind of nutrition you will have to give those plants. So it's not that once a day पानी दे दिया तो फिर चल जाएगा या फिर आपने once a month nutrition soil को जो चाहिए वो दे दिया तो चल जाएगा. No. Similarly, like skin and hair, the nutrition ऐसे नहीं है कि morning में hair को दे दिया, evening में skin ले लेगा. There has to be a constant hypernutrition available in the body. ताकि जब the hair, each hair, if it requires a nutrition, चलते चलते it should be able to pick up from the blood. The skin, when it requires a nutrition, it should be able to pick it up from the blood. Utna nutrition should be present in the body, and if it is there, it is enough to keep the skin and the hair healthy, which very few people understand. And all your treatments, all your shampoos, all your lotions will fail if nutrition is not proper. See, when you go to a dermatologist or you go for your skin treatment, when you go to a doctor, they give you a lot of things, but they always give you a lot of multivitamins. Why? Because that is required if the medicine has to work, or if your skin or hair has to glow, or the hair has to be nice. It requires nothing but nutrition. And how much can you give the supplements when you're not giving natural things which a skin and hair requires? So it is very important. It is a very basic concept, but it is very, very important that you give nutrition to your hair and skin, and it will always be healthy. This is a short list we have prepared for you all, that what exactly in a daily life you would require. Water, paramount important again, 2 to 2.5 liters for an adult. 5 almonds, 5 pistachios, 10 pumpkin seeds, 1 whole walnut kernel, 2 fruits, 1 quarter plate of salad. These are the things which should be there: a cucumber, tomato, carrot, radish, beetroot, and if possible, asparagus. That is the and 2 to 3 servings of milk, curd and paneer, either of it, 2 boiled eggs daily, and fish if and when, preferably twice a week because it is rich in omega-3. So y'all can take a picture of this slide. This is something, which should be there daily. This will really help. So this is the basic things which you can do for your skin, which usually is a part of our daily diet. But we have to take it in this quantity for the skin and hair. I wanted to tell you this concept as well. I'm sure that many would not know the color. By color, I mean that, look for the colors in fruits, in your salads and veggies. Everyone knows about nutrition, but there is something called antioxidants. We have been hearing it a lot. So whenever, you go to buy a vegetable and you see a cucumber, which is, one is yellow, one is green. The green may be little expensive, but go for it. Why? Because of the color. When you're taking brinjal, it is very bright purple. Eat it without peeling the skin because for the color. Similarly, any fruit or any vegetable you buy, if you find the other one a little more, tomatoes are more reddish and colorful, buy that one. Even for the soup. So like for soup, what do? You prepare it with tomatoes, beetroots. Those are all colorful things. The more the color, the more the antioxidants, the more the nutrition. So this is, very important when you're making your salads, your soups and all, and in general. So the fruits, the vegetables, which has more color is rich in antioxidants. So with this is the basic concept of the skin or for the hair. Make your life colorful kind of thing with your food elements. Now we come to acne. What is it? I'll just briefly take you through that how different types of acne look like. So basically it is a chronic inflammation of the facial skin. Involves face, especially the nose and surrounding areas. It can be caused by multiple factors. Could be excess oil on the face, bacterial infection, or if the hair follicles are clogged, and inflammation. What are the signs and symptoms? Redness, thickened skin on nose and cheeks, whiteheads. So how do they look like? So they are closed plugged pores. Blackheads, they are open plugged pores. Papules, so they will be little small raised lesions. Pustules, so there will be, white, there will be pus around. Cystic lesions, they are very painful. They are filled with lumps of pus under the skin. This is how they would look like. Sometimes they even form nodules. Nodules mean a little hardness will be there. So in general, this is how they are. First, it will start with redness and all, which we usually see. Then the blackheads, whiteheads, papule, pustules, cysts, and nodules. What would be the possible complications? So depending upon the severity of the acne, it will cause scarring of the skin. So the tip and the trick is when the pimples or the acne is at the first few stages, that is the time to treat it. So usually, if you wash your face twice daily, and if you see that it's, if your face is little oily, then maybe wash it little more frequently. But the trick is to, kind of treat the pimples or take care of them before they start forming cysts or the nodules. They have been found associated with psychological distress because what happens over the period of time, unfortunately, if someone is suffering with it, it kind of, people start asking, what is this? Are you doing something about it? So before it reaches that stage, that is a trick to kind of take care of them. Triggers could be hormonal, stress, and certain foods. So if you know that certain foods are causing you that trouble, it goes invariably to say that you need to consume that little less. Hormonal thing, basically, if the pimples have arisen because of that, then you need to correct that part. So females would see typically, happening before the periods, or when they start happening, then over the period of time, if they are not taken care of, then it increases. So if certain hormonal issues are there that needs to be corrected, then the pimples would automatically getting better, or definitely get corrected. How to take care of acne? As I said, that wash your face twice a day. There are over-the-counter products. I've named a few which usually help. But if it persists or worsen, as I said, that do not let it go harden, or the cyst formation or the nodule formation. Before that, you need to kind of take care of it. The doctor may prescribe an oral antibiotic. Usually you should avoid the cortisone one. So if you see a preparation which has this factor in that, then kind of avoid it. And definitely not buy something which a doctor has not prescribed. Because it is very common, people feel that, if you go to a doctor, or whether you're visiting a dermatologist, it's better to go and ask the pharmacy, is this the one? And, you kind of treat yourself with that. And then in that cause, the acne worsens. Please do not do that. We come to dandruff. What is it? So skin condition characterized by dry or greasy white scales. Dandruff is a form of seborrheic dermatitis. Very important, it is not contagious. So normally it will affect the scalp, but a higher variety may even affect the eyebrows, the forehead, face, folds around the nose, behind the ears, external ear canal, and the skin of the trunk. So it is found to affect these areas as well. And what are the signs and symptoms? Flaking. We all know that, it kind of flakes. White scales over reddish patches on the skin. You can see the picture, it exactly looks like this. And then they kind of adhere to the shaft. There may be itching. It is usually painless unless complicated by an infection. And what are the causes? See, our glands which are there in the skin, it secretes sebum. Any excess of it will lead to dryness and then irritates the skin. So, usually we feel that I got a dandruff, I got treated, and then it should go. But it is not so, because we have this tendency to form this sebum, right? So this is virtually a lifelong problem. There will be phases in between when you kind of treat it, or when you take a proper care, then it gets better, and for a long time you will not see a dandruff. But it will recur if you don't take a proper care. It will recur. So this is the reason. So one has this notion of I got it treated and then it should go. It might not be so. The risk increases with hot and humid, cold, dry weather, infrequent shampooing, oily skin, and there may be other disorders also. If someone has it, it may kind of increase the risk of the same. What are the complications? Social discomfort. We have seen all those ads, where people kind of get very embarrassed and all. It is true. It's not that they're just showing it off for the sake of it. It is true. It does cause social discomfort if it is too much in its quantity. And this infection is something which is worrying. So if someone has a dandruff and then it gets secondary bacterial infection, then it is worrying. What is the treatment? These are the few general measures which you should be taking. Shampoo vigorously and as often as once a day. So it's that, if someone is having a dandruff, washing the hair daily should become a norm for some time till it is getting better. Because as I said, that sebum, those oil glands, they are producing it daily. So you need to wash it off daily. Because if it is not washed off daily, then it can become infected, then it becomes, very thick, very difficult to remove. The shampoo you're using is not as important as the way you're scrubbing your scalp. Now, this is very important. Usually we kind of want to see that which shampoo should be used. We kind of do so much of research, and there's so much available also. But that is not important. What is more important is how you're using that shampoo. Loosen scales with your fingernails while shampooing and scrub it at least for 5 minutes. I hope I'm clear here. This is this is something very, very important. It's a simple thing, but if you're doing this on a daily basis and doing it correctly, then there are very high chances that you will not end up with a dandruff problem for a long. As I said that, it is a continual thing. So to आज dandruff है तो आज ये कर लिया और ठीक हो गया तो वो चला जाएगा, ऐसा नहीं है. So it is very important that this should become a part of your life. Treatment, I will just brush you through with this, that minor dandruff may non-prescription shampoo and a skin lotion will help. But when the problems are severe, then it needs to be treated in a different way. Then the shampoo will be different. It will not be a normal shampoo, as I said earlier, because here the condition has already worsened. Our scalp has already been infected. So you would require a different treatment for it altogether. But yes, this is a typical way you apply the medication to the scalp. Part of the hair which is affected, you rub the ointment and lotion vigorously into the scalp. The whole idea is to remove the dead skin which is kind of gathered there, and sometimes you will also see peeling of the skin. So you need to be also careful that if that happens, you need to take care of it so that it should not again get infected. Probable outcome, this is a chronic condition. And as I said, in between there will be long periods of inactivity. So you will see that there is nothing and you will feel that, it is almost practically gone. During active phases, symptoms can be controlled with treatment. So when it is active, that time you need to do, if it is very minimal, as I said, the other part of the routine, even if it's infected, you need to get it treated. Another skin condition, dermatitis. What is it? So see this picture. Itis basically means there is an inflammation. So there is redness and other things. And dermatitis is the inflammation of the skin. Derm means skin and itis is the inflammation. Contact dermatitis is not contagious. I want to repeat this, that this condition is not contagious. See, this is little more severe form of it. There's itching, there will be itching, slight redness. Cracks and fissures may also develop. Bright red areas which will ooze pus in severe cases. So what are the causes of it? Any contact with, certain people get it with the detergents, some sprays or some solvents, something which we are using in a daily life. So some people get it with that. What it does is actually it removes the fatty layer of the skin. So this causes dehydration and shrinking of the surface cells. So basically what happens is because of this, the surface of our skin, basically, in the hands and all, they start getting affected. Sometimes even jewelry. As I showed you the earlier picture, I'll take you through, see this finger. So this has been caused by the jewelry a person is wearing. And in rare cases, sometimes plants. So people do get it with plants and all, but that is in rare cases. Treatment in general. Avoid the chemical. So if you know that, it is being caused by the chemical or the material is causing skin eruptions, you need to avoid that. And use a glycerin-based soap instead of an ordinary soap for bathing. And the skin should be pat dry rather than rub it dry. So usually people have this habit of rubbing, after a bath and all. People do have this tendency, especially, I've seen that you try to rub it as if that rubbing is going to dry it. No, pat dry, because with rubbing you are again increasing the irritation, you are increasing the complaint. Use lukewarm water for bathing. Treatment general measures. Only creams, lotions, or ointments prescribed by the doctor should be used. Again, I'm repeating this because we have this tendency of, buying, and it may not be the correct prescription based on your ailment you have. In fact, it may aggravate the condition. Just because a product has herbal written on it or pictures of a plants, it does not make it safe. So usually, we are getting now in the markets because people think that, if it is a plant thing and all, people buy more, which is happening. So whether the thing has a chemical or not, they just put a picture. We have seen so many products. It doesn't even have those kind of, effectiveness. But just because there's a picture, we tend to buy that thinking this is herbal and this will definitely help, or it will not aggravate. It may not be the condition. So please see the product, what you're using. And in this case, applying ointment and cream to the affected part 6 to 7 times a day is very important. Because as I said that, it is doing dehydration of the skin, then there are cracks and all. So you need to kind of, hydrate it very regularly. For the other body parts, lubricate twice a day, especially after bathing. These are like, people who have to kind of use the detergents or who have to work, then they can use a cotton-lined vinyl gloves and dry the gloves after use. So, and discard it if there is a hole. Don't try to, use the same thing over and over again. And women who are, or anyone who is kind of has to cook, or there are certain things which kind of, they're acidic in nature, then wear a glove. Be careful while washing dishes. This is very important because then, what kind of detergent is there. So be a little careful while you're doing this kind of daily course. And as I showed you, so removing the rings, what will happen is, usually what happens that you wear the ring and then you do your, whatever you are doing, and then the part below the ring remains wet. And then it is constantly coming, the ring or, the bangles are constantly coming in contact with the skin, which is wet. And then it gives irritation. It can even give cracks on that part, and then it gets infected. So the basic, this basic thing of removing it, doing your work, pat dry, and then wear them again. This can really reduce the complaint to 50% or more at times. If symptoms do not resolve or worsen, you have to show it. So, this is the condition. As I showed you the first picture, that was a very, at the initial stage. Later on, you saw that how there were cracks, there was peeling, and there was, that can infect further. So if it is not getting better with the basic things which I told you, you need to consult a doctor. They may give you a steroid preparation or a lubricant. I'm not going into detail of the medication, but if there is a fever or there is a sign of infection, if the swelling increases, if it becomes very painful, if it becomes more red, if it is warm to touch at the site of infection, wherever the thing is, you should immediately contact a doctor. Psoriasis. So this is a picture of a psoriasis. Now see, this becomes a little detailed ailment in terms of treatment, but this one thing which we wanted to emphasize here is that this is not contagious. This is a chronic skin problem, but not a contagious one. And this is what happens. There will be no thickened skin. The skin will scale, and this is how typically it will look like. You would have seen a lot of people, especially in the leg area, in the hand area. So this is psoriasis. It is different from dermatitis I showed you. Dermatitis typically will happen in people, who are kind of doing a lot of work with the detergents or with the chemicals, and women or people who wear a lot of jewelry, and they end up having the dermatitis in that area. This is a different skin ailment which happens more in the typically more in the limbs. But this is different from dermatitis. Here you will see thickened and flakes. So you will see, a very, like you see in dandruff, how the thing falls, you will see the skin falling in this condition. Treatment, as I told you, I will not go in detail for this because this has to be treated by a doctor. Mild disease, they usually give local application for this. And for a severe to moderate, they will be treating you internally. Alopecia areata. This is also something which we see very common. So you see a patch of the skin just in the middle of the head. Sudden hair loss in circular patches on the scalp without any other visible evidence of scalp disease. It is not contagious. Sudden hair loss, as I said, and there will be sharply designed circular patches. So if you see here, it is, you can make out it is a circular patch. There is no pain or itching. Treatment, medication, usually, cream would be given to apply once or twice daily. It should be, what is more important is whatever is given to you should apply immediately after bathing or shampooing, because that is the time it kind of spreads in the skin very nicely. And for the scalp and groin, use only low potency steroid. This is something for the doctors here. And in special cases, the doctor may even inject a steroid in the affected area. So there are certain conditions, or if the patches are more than one or many and not responding to a normal treatment, direct injection of the medicine at the site will also be done. General measures is consider wearing a wig during acute phases and continue to bathe and shampoo as usual. While combing, this is very important, we don't realize this, but while combing, usually we have seen so many people who are, forcefully kind of trying to remove the hair. In fact, at in certain patients, we have even seen that when they tie a very tight ponytail and all, in those, you see a little more. There is no direct correlation, but we have seen patients who are doing that more. So it's very important that here what happens basically, the scalp becomes little weak. So when people have this condition, they should take care of, not forcefully kind of combing their hair because the roots are weak. That's it from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Sushma, for your knowledgeable insights. Our next speaker is Dr. Shrita Iyer. Dr. Shrita has about advocating for women's health and dispersing women's health education. She's pursuing this passion now under the guidance of Dr. C.H.S. Rani. Today, she's going to talk about general skincare. Handing over to you, Dr. Shrita.
Hi, I'm sorry, I think there was some issue with my Zoom, but thank you so much for that introduction, Preeti. So I'm Dr. Shrita Iyer, and I'll be talking a little more on general things that we can do for skincare. Right, so I hope my screen is visible to all.
Yes, Shrita.
So, yeah. Okay, so like Dr. Sushma spoke earlier, the skin also is divided segments. So we have the epidermis, which is the uppermost layer, followed by the dermis and the hypodermis. Now, our dermis and hypodermis contain our hair follicles, muscles, the arteries, veins, nerve bundles, and the epidermis is the uppermost layer which we can all see. That is, whenever we are taking care, whatever we are doing to our epidermis. So what are some factors that affect our skin? There are a multitude of factors that affect, but here are some of the most common ones. First is our diet. Like Dr. Sushma very rightly said, what we put inside our body affects how we look. So when we eat green leafy vegetables, carrots, which are rich in beta carotene, when we eat all fruits and vegetables that are rich in vitamin C, like any citrus fruits that we eat, these have a beneficial effect on our skin, and eventually they help how we look or how our skin looks. Pollution. Now we all know, so many of us, especially living in bigger cities where pollution is ever increasing, pollution actually can cause dry, dull skin. It can affect our skin. It can be detrimental to how our skin looks. Then we have the sun, and this is inescapable. Everybody comes in contact with the sun. The sun is one of the worst things for our skin because the sun can cause long-term damage, and the sun can also increase the risk of cancer. That is something that we will take a look at later as we go further into the presentation. Stress. So with our lifestyle, stress can also cause a poor effect on our skin, and it can cause the skin to can cause us to age rapidly. Hormones. There is not much that we can do about hormones or genetics. Now, these genetics is something that is non-modifiable. It's not in our hands. But the rest of this, we can actually make some changes towards. We can make sure we improve our diet. We can restrict or make sure we reduce the amount of pollution our skin is in contact with. We can make sure we take appropriate protection against the sun. So, and we can make sure that we keep our stress levels low to improve our skin. Now, skincare products now contain nowadays, because people are getting more aware, people are being more aware about what they're eating, what they're putting on their skin, they want to look better. So now skin products also contain FDA approved actives. These are some drugs that earlier would have only been given by a doctor through a prescription, but now they are also present in some of our cosmetic products, and they are present over the counter at pharmacies also. So we can also go buy them. Or creams that we used to use earlier now contain some of these actives which earlier only a doctor could have given. Of course, they are in lower concentrations, but they are yet present. So it is very important for us as consumers to know what it is we are using, and as doctors to also know what it is our patients are using, because someone might get a reaction to something that they're using and they might not even realize it. It might be because of one of these actives that are present in these cosmetics. So what are some basic things or requirements for the skin? One is cleansing. Second is prevention. We all know prevention is better than cure. So prevention of aging, prevention of fine lines, of pigmentation. There's protection and moisturizing. So first, let's take a look at cleansing. We already know, and Dr. Sushma also spoke about this, washing your face. Washing your face is very, very important, and it is the first step in anybody's skincare routine or regime. We have to wash our faces every day. Depending on how oily or dry your skin is, you can wash once a day, or you can wash up to 3 times a day. But always make sure that you are not overwashing your skin, because you don't want to strip all the moisture that is there. You don't want to make it very dry by washing it very vigorously. So based on your skin type, from 1 to 3 times a day, you wash your face. Always make sure to pat your face dry and not rub. Every time we rub, every time we pull against our skin, we are causing more harm to the skin. Like I said, do not over cleanse, and use lukewarm or cold water. Hot water can also be a little drying to the skin. Makeup. Now, a lot of us use makeup on a day-to-day basis. So it is very important that at night, before we sleep, we take off the makeup. No matter how tired you are, no matter how much you want to go off to sleep, always take off your makeup. It has to be removed before sleeping. We see a lot of these advertisements for makeup wipes, which are being very commonly used and being promoted. However, these are bad for us because they can actually cause more harm to your face, because you're pulling your face, you're tugging your face. Makeup wipes can be bad to the skin, and makeup wipes are also bad for the environment because you're throwing away that much into a landfill. a latest or a newer thing that has come up in dermatology is double cleansing. In this method, first you use an oil-based cleanser. Like if you ever speak, like my grandmother at least used to tell me that I should wash my face. Like I should apply oil first. So that takes off all the oil, the grime, the makeup, sunscreen, all of that. And then wash with water or with a water-based cleanser. So you wash your face twice, first with an oil-based cleanser. So that loosens up all the dirt, takes off the makeup, takes off any kind of sunscreen, and then you use a water-based cleanser so that actually cleans the face properly. These steps also help prevent acne because, like Dr. Sushma said, one of the causes of acne is bacteria on your skin, and if we are cleaning our face and we are getting rid of bacteria, the chances of acne occurring are reduced, or you're taking care for it. Going ahead, exfoliation. So exfoliation helps improve tone and texture. This is an Indian home, like we used to during Diwali, at least I've grown up using utna and chana. But if you go to see, now we have physical exfoliation and chemical exfoliation. Physical exfoliation, very commonly these apricot scrubs are available. But something to note about these is that they have very large granules. These granules can cause micro tears in the skin and can actually lead to acne or can actually be bad for your skin. So whenever you're buying a physical exfoliant or you're using a physical exfoliant, make sure that it has smaller granules. When you use utna or when you use chana dal to exfoliate, you will see that those granules are very, very small. They are not very big. But when you go to a drugstore or you go to the pharmacy or you go out and you buy one of these scrubs, these scrub ka bottles that you get, they always have very big granules, and these can actually tear the skin because our face skin is very, very thin and sensitive. And if we use these vigorously on our face, then they can actually tear the skin. So while temporarily in the short run, your skin might seem brighter or cleaner, in the longer run, you're actually harming your skin. So always be careful that you're using a correctly sized physical exfoliant. A newer thing that has come up now is a chemical exfoliant. Initially, these were only available at a dermatologist or at a licensed someone with a proper setup. But now, because of these newer trends, these are also available over the counter. So these include things like these are mainly AHAs and DHAs, that is alpha hydroxy acids and beta hydroxy acids, which could be lactic acid, salicylic acid, mandelic acid, azelaic acid. All of these are chemical exfoliants, and they do the same thing. They, instead of actually physically removing it, these also help reduce the glue that is there between the skin cells, and the upper layer of the skin is then exfoliated. Again, with these, you have to be careful because it might be too harsh for your skin. So make sure that whenever, if you are using some product that you've bought on your own, make sure you look at the ingredients list. You're very aware of what it is. Do a test patch on your hand somewhere. Always on your hand, do a test patch before you apply it on your face. And in case after applying you ever see any reaction, always go to your doctor. From there, now we go on to prevention. As always, prevention is better than cure. So what can we do to prevent our skin from going bad or to prevent aging? So first, let's talk about why it is required. So the epidermal thickness decreases per decade that we age. This is because the amount of glycosaminoglycans, hyaluronic acid, collagen, elastin, all of this, which makes our skin supple in our younger ages, starts reducing, and that causes dermal thinning of 6% per decade. So as we age, these in things that are found in our skin at a younger age start reducing, and it makes our skin more dry, thinned out, more prone to wrinkles and fine lines. So what can we do now is retinoids. These have been a mainstay in dermatology for a very long time now. They are a form of vitamin A, and they help in redensification of skins. Another way is you can just eat your way through it. But now it's becoming more common and more acceptable to use retinoids on your face also. Again, if you are, as a consumer, are using retinoids, please make sure you check that it works for your skin, because these can cause redness. Retinoids, if is not suitable for your skin, they can cause redness, they can cause inflammation, they can cause more harm than actual good. If you are going to your doctor and they are giving it to you, use it as they say. Do not use it excessively. Do not. And if you use it less, of course, you won't see any results. But that is why be very, very careful when you're using any of these active ingredients. Then there is vitamin C. Like Dr. Sushma also mentioned, and later even I said that if you eat citrus fruits, it helps. Vitamin C is good for you. Similarly, applying vitamin C on your face can also help. It helps maintaining an even tone. Vitamin C is known to have antioxidant properties. So the damage that is caused by the sun is reversed a little or is reduced because of vitamin C. So vitamin C is also becoming a mainstay in people's skincare routines. And the newer guidelines in dermatology state that some of these ingredients should be incorporated from as early as 25, 26 years of age. We then have other things like kojic acid, which can brighten the skin. Kojic acid is found in a lot of creams which state that they brighten your skin or make it lighter. But it is very important that we take a look at the ingredient list, because this, again, if it is in a formulation that does not suit our face or our skin, or if it is in a formulation that is, or the percentage that is there is higher, then this can actually cause burns, scarring, redness, inflammation of the skin. So always be careful. Always look at the ingredient list of any cream that you buy. And then you have hyaluronic acid. Hyaluronic acid and glycerine are two ingredients that have a unique property, that they are humectants. What they do is they make sure that the skin absorbs moisture either from the environment or from the dermis. The epidermis, when we apply it, humectants retain, they absorb and they retain moisture in that layer. So they help make the skin more moisturized and supple and prevent it from getting dehydrated. One of the common ones that is available is hyaluronic acid. Then we go on to moisturizing. Now, moisturizers have two important ingredients in them. They are humectants and occlusives. So everyone is very commonly aware of Vaseline. Vaseline is an occlusive. So our skin loses water throughout the day. All of our skin loses water throughout the day. This is known as transepidermal loss of water. Now, if there is excessive transepidermal loss of water and we don't put that water back in, it can cause dehydrated skin. And dehydrated skin becomes dry and is more prone to fine lines and wrinkles. So signs of aging can happen earlier if you have dry, dehydrated skin. So it is important to prevent excessive water loss from our skin. It's normal. It is a normal physiological process to have transepidermal loss of water, but we want to make sure that it does not become excessive. So that's why we moisturize. It creates a barrier between the skin and the environment. That's because of ingredients like occlusives. Like if you apply Vaseline to your skin, the water you'll see will slip off. So it creates a barrier between your skin and the environment. So if there is pollution in the environment, it's preventing your skin from being exposed to those noxious, harmful chemicals. It also keeps the actives preserved for a longer time. So say you've applied vitamin C and then on top of that you moisturize. So it's making sure that stays inside the skin and doesn't go out. And then finally, it prevents excessive loss of water because, like I said, moisturizers have humectants. So it'll draw in water from the environment as well as from the dermis into the epidermis, and it'll prevent loss from the epidermis into the environment. That's how our moisturizers work. Now, what are some myths that are related to moisturizers? One is people with oily skin do not need to moisturize. This is an absolute myth. People with all skin types need to moisturize or apply a cream. Oily skin can also be dehydrated. You just need to find the right one. And the second is that they're only required in winter. This is again false. Even if it is summer or winter, in any season, you need to moisturize your skin. You just change the formulation based on how humid it is or how dry it is. And finally, we come to protection. This is one of the most important things that we need to do for our skin, especially today. Sunscreen. Never ever step out of your house without sunscreen. Regular daily use of SPF 15 sunscreen can reduce your risk of developing squamous cell carcinoma by 40% and lower your melanoma risk by 50%. It is very important that everybody uses sunscreen. this is how squamous cell carcinoma or melanoma looks, and we want to prevent this. And the easiest way to do it is to use sunscreen. There is often this misconception that because we have a darker skin tone, we have more melanin, we are protected against the sun. It is true, we are more protected than those with lighter skin, but that does not mean we don't need SPF. We need sunscreen. So let's talk a little about mineral versus chemical sunscreens. In mineral sunscreens, when you apply, they create a barrier that blocks UV rays from entering the skin and reaching the surface. So the minute you apply, they start working. Examples of these are titanium dioxide or zinc oxide. If you look at your sunscreen ingredient list, you might see these. Or you have chemical sunscreens. What they do is they absorb the UV rays and convert them to heat. So the effect of UV rays does not occur on your skin. Instead, they're just converted to heat, which is then dissipated by the skin. And these always require 15 to 20 minutes before you step out. So always apply these 20 minutes before you leave the house and only then go. Examples of these are oxybenzone or octinoxate. These will again be there in the ingredient list. So this is how a sunscreen works. If there is no sunscreen, the sun's rays, UVA and UVB, act on the epidermis and dermis, and it can cause reduced collagen production. It can lead to cancer eventually. Then we have mineral sunscreen. Mineral sunscreen creates a layer over the epidermis itself, and the UV rays get reflected, so they never reach the skin. And finally, there is chemical sunscreen where the rays reach the dermis, but because of the sunscreen that you have applied, the chemicals in that convert it into heat, which gets dissipated by the skin. Now, what do we check in our sunscreen? First is it should always be broad spectrum. You want to cover UVA and UVB rays. You can't just have one or the other. It has to always be broad spectrum, and it should at least be SPF 30. So if you take a look at this chart, you will see that SPF 15 gives 93% protection. SPF 30 gives 96.7% protection. Lately we've seen a lot of products that have SPF 70, 80, but that is not really required. After SPF 30, the graph almost plateaus. So the higher the SPF is, there's very little increase in actual protection that is happening, but at least SPF 30 is required. Always remember to apply it before you go out of the house, for 20 minutes at least before you go out of the house. And it has to be reapplied every 2 hours when you're in the sun. The last year, so with so many people working from home, we've been sitting in front of our laptops itself, right? So you would think you don't need to apply SPF. That's not true. Even if you're sitting in front of your laptop or your computer, these devices, your phone also, these devices emit radiations which can have a similar effect. Which is why even if you're sitting in front of your computer screen, always wear SPF. It has to be applied at the beginning of your day, whether you're going out or you're sitting in front of your screen. So that's my talk on skincare. So short about basic things that we can do for prevention of aging. And most importantly, we need to take care of our diet, exercise, stress levels. And then all of this is over and above that, just to make sure that we are aware of what it is that is going into our skincare. Preeti, I'll hand it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shrita, for your empowering talk on skincare. We'll surely follow the tips shared by you. With this, we move on to our next speaker, Dr. Anisha Ramit. So Dr. Anisha Ramit has completed her BDS and MBA in Hospital and Healthcare Management from Symbiosis Institute of Health Sciences. She's pursuing her dream in healthcare marketing and business development while also touching her base in medicine. She's pursuing her passion of women health and discussing this education on women's health under the guidance of Dr. C.H. Astrani. Dr. Anisha today is going to share tips and tricks about hair care. Handing over to you, Dr. Anisha.
Thank you, Preeti. Today I'm going to take the essential hair care tips. So the hair growth, that is affected by several factors. It may be affected by age. So the younger you are, you have thicker amount of hair. The older you grow, you lose more hair. It also depends upon the diet. So if you're doing a crash diet or you are, doing keto diet, you tend to lose more amount of hair. It also depends upon your general health. So if you have any disease, or if you have your hemoglobin is low, you have anemia, in those cases you lose a lot of hair. It even depends upon the season. Like, many people don't believe this, but it's true. It depends upon the season. In summer your hair goes thicker, it looks more voluminous, it gets greasy also faster, but it looks more you know um, strong, right? And even during pregnancy, because we have an hormone outburst, that's the reason, during pregnancy our hair growth is much substantial compared to, post delivery. So we lose a lot of hair post delivery, and depending upon how well you take care of your hair. So I'm going to highlight mainly how well you should take care of your hair. Now, has anyone, like, I'm sure most of y'all have seen this image and got scared and thought, oh, I'm going to grow bald because, I'm losing so much amount of hair. As Dr. Sushma said, that we have approximately 1 lakh hair on our scalp, and it's normal to lose 100 to 150 strands of hair a day. So don't panic when you see a small bunch crawling across your tiled floor. Usually when you wake up in the morning, you see little crunch of hair at the corners of your room, but there's nothing to be scared of. This is normal. You will lose this much amount of hair. There are new hair also which are growing. Now I'm going to start with some tips and tricks. Let's start with the first tip. I did not start with oiling because I know many people do not like oiling, but I will come to it soon. I'll start with tips for hair wash. So the first thing is that hair should be washed minimum every 3 to 4 days. Now, why am I saying this? That when your scalp it gets greasy, right? There are oils which are getting secreted. There are dead skin particles which are getting accumulated in your hair, and which leads to some amount of smell, some amount of typical smell it has. After third or fourth day, if you try to smell your hair, or someone tries to smell your scalp, you will get that odor, right? So hair should be washed every 3 to 4 days to get rid of all these dead particles and all the extra oil that has been secreted. You should wash your hair with lukewarm water. Now, what happens when you go for a bath and you just try to wash your hair under hot water? It gives you some amount of satisfaction. It makes you feel good. But remember one thing, it is also eroding your scalp of all the essential oils. It is eroding your hair of the moisture and the luster that it needs, and it's going to make it dry in the end, right? Because it's hot water. Anything hot is going to evaporate the moisture out. So you should wash with lukewarm water. Okay, this many people get this wrong, that where does the shampoo go, where does the conditioner? So the shampoo, okay, now all the dead particles, all the greasiness, everything is coming on the scalp region, which needs to be cleansed, right? So that happens only in your scalp region. So this is where the shampoo goes. You need to wash your scalp mainly with shampoo. You need to massage it well, and you need to wash it well. And when it comes to the conditioner, see, remember one thing, that all the oil is getting secreted near your scalp. So the hair near your scalp is going to get greasier first. So that is the place which already is going to get the nutrition, is going to get that luster feeling, the oil, it's going to get it, right? Conditioner is needed from the mid shaft to the end level. So that is where you apply your conditioner. You should try to rinse the conditioner off cold water, as it is good for both strength and shine, and you should rinse it well. Any product which is left on the scalp is going to lead to these conditions like dermatitis. It's going to lead to dandruff. It is going to lead to allergic reactions. So make sure that when on the products it is written rinse thoroughly, it actually means you remove all the product off your hair. Obviously, when you put conditioner, there'll be some silkiness left on your hair when you're washing it, but from your scalp, everything should be out. Now dry off gently. Now many people, we have seen that, they try to dry it with the towel, but some people, you must have seen, they hit their hair with the towel. That is not how you do it. When your hair are wet, your roots are actually very weak, and they are actually prone to breakage. Your hair is prone to breakage. So it's best that you just pat dry your hair with a towel. take a cotton t-shirt and just wrap your hair with that, with a cotton t-shirt. It's going to remove all the excess water, as well as it's not going to be harsh on your hair. And try to let it dry naturally. Avoid using hair drying instruments, okay? Because obviously the more instruments, the more heat you put on your hair, it's going to lose all the moisture, it's going to lose all the the nutrition, the viability that it has. Now after washing, there are certain tips. Now wet hair, as I told you, are extremely fragile and are prone to breakage. Hence it should not be combed with a brush or a thin comb. Do not use a thin comb on your hair, wet hair. All right, you should always use a broad tooth comb and run it from the roots to the ends of your hair. See, if some people have this habit, I'm just going to stop my share 1 second. Some people have this habit of taking the ends and brushing it harshly. You're actually putting pressure here. Take it from your roots and put it down. Okay, so here comes, this is your hair, this is your broad tooth comb. Take it from the roots, gently get it down. All right, now I'm going to highlight certain styling tips. So firstly, most women, we know that they love to straighten, they love to blow dry, they like to curl their hair to make their hair look more fuller, to, you know, give a look that someone likes. Like people who have wavy hair want it straight, some people who have straight hair want it curly, but this all is going to damage your hair in the end, right? So there are some tips that can help you save your hair from the harshness of these instruments. So for blow drying your hair, okay, when someone is blow drying your hair, firstly, try to buy a blow dryer which has a cold dry option. Cold drying is better than drying your hair with hot air. All right. Usually the blow dryers which have cold dry option have this symbol on it. The symbol which is in blue, that symbol is there on that. If you press that button, it gives cold air instead of hot air. All right. Spray a heat protectant spray before blow drying, straightening or curling your hair, which is one of the most important hair tips to follow. You want to style it, okay, but use a heat protectant, heat tanner spray. I'm going to show you one which I use. I'm just going to cover the brand. Okay, so this is something that I use. If you can read it, it's called Heat Tanner Spray. All right, this product actually, when you spray it on your hair, and you can just use a comb to spread it evenly, and after that, after 2 minutes, you can blow dry your hair or curl your hair, and it works perfectly fine. It does not damage the hair as much as it would damage without these protectant sprays. You should blow dry with a round brush and try to move the brush in the direction where you're blow drying. All right, like move it simultaneously. Like if there is a brush here, try to move the blow dryer simultaneously and move it from the roots to the tips. If you do it vice versa, it's going to cause a lot of frizz. Never straighten or curl your hair when they are wet. Now imagine a hot pan. When you sprinkle some water on the hot pan, what happens? It just evaporates, right? So that is what is going to happen to your hair. It's going to kill the moisture of the hair completely. So please avoid using that. And whichever tools you're using, blow dryer, maybe straightener, don't use it on a high. Like there's usually a button, right? 1 to 10 or 1 to 3. Don't try to use it on an extreme high heat setting. Try to use it on a low or a medium setting. Now I'm going to give you some hairstyle tips. First is, you should cut about 1/4 an inch of your hair every 6 to 8 weeks to avoid split ends to grow out again. See, sometimes, you feel that, oh, my hair is growing. If I cut my hair, it won't grow as much. It won't look that long. But you should cut it, because if there are split ends, your hair is going to grow like this. It is not going to grow straight, right? So that is why it is important that you cut 1/4 inch of your hair every 6 to 8 weeks. Get a haircut that suits your facial features best. Adding layers and bangs add dimensions to your face and texture to your hair, making it look voluminous. So when you go to the parlor, many people get layers done. Maybe in a pony, it will not look that voluminous. But when you leave your hair open, layers definitely add more volume to your hair. Okay, this Dr. Sushma had also highlighted that you should try avoiding high ponytails. What happens when you tie a high ponytail? You are actually putting a lot of tension to your hair, right? To your side locks, to your hair. You're pulling it in one direction. So this will create a lot of unnecessary strain. So what you're supposed to do is try to tie a loose ponytail with an elastic cloth covered rubber band. Okay, and this will prevent the unnecessary strain. And if you want a fuller look, keep changing sides. So this is my personal tip for y'all. See, this is how my hair is right now. Okay, it starts looking flat after some time. So all you got to do is change sides. Put it on this side. Now it looks much fuller than what it was on this side. So keep changing sides and every half an hour, and that is going to help your hair look fuller. Okay. Now about hair oiling. Now, why did I take this in the end? Many people do not like to oil their hair. So I am not only going to target hair oiling, I am also going to give you certain packs that you can use for, hair oiling instead of hair oiling. Okay. Now for hair oiling, the best way is, see, I'll show you one. Try to use these kind of oils, which is virgin coconut oil. I'm not sure whether it's very visible. It's virgin coconut oil. Try to use virgin coconut oil or, pure products. Do a small skin test, see whether it's suiting your skin, then only use these products. Even your shampoo and conditioner, please choose it wisely. All right, don't try to keep changing your shampoo and conditioner, and do a skin test before using it on your hair. Okay, now regarding hair oiling, the way to actually oil your hair is that you are supposed to heat the oil. So put some oil in a bowl and take a bigger bowl and put hot water in that. Put this smaller bowl of oil in that so that the oil gets heated up. It should not get very hot, so it should not burn your scalp, but it should be hot enough so that you can feel the warmth. All right. You can use a cotton pad or you can use the fingers to apply the oil in your scalp, parting the hair as need be. Also apply oil across the length of your hair to provide the moisture. Use a mix of slow circular movements to relax and steady vigorous movements which will help enhance energy and circulation. Even a massager can help here. So whenever you're putting oil, it is extremely essential that you massage in slow circular movements as well as you do vigorous movements like this. All right. Even a massager like this can help. All right. This is readily available on online platforms. I'm not promoting any brand. All right. This is readily available. So it has massaging tips and it has a brush also. So most of the times when you're oiling your hair, you can just keep combing it with that. It has 2 vibrate options also here. So you can just keep combing that. So it will give some amount of circulation. It improves blood circulation. See, before you wash your hair, it is essential that you oil your hair so that, when you're washing your hair, there is some amount of moisture that gets retained. At least keep the oil for 30 to 60 minutes. Longer the better, but you should not keep the oil for more than 4 to 5 days at a stretch, because all the dead particles, the sweat, everything is getting accumulated and it's getting stuck in your hair. So it needs cleansing. So you should not extend it beyond 4 to 5 days. Okay, now this is one of the tips that I personally use. So when I oil my hair, before washing it, I fill a bucket with hot water. I take a towel, dip it in the hot water, remove the excess water and cover my hair with that. All right, it helps the oil to seep in better. It will also help condition and soften your hair better. So hot towel treatment is actually a very effective method. You just have to put it in the hot water, cover your head with that for 10 to 15 minutes, and then you can go for a head bath. So it is not very time consuming, but this is a very effective method. Now, advantages of hair oiling: it improves blood circulation. It helps in strengthening the roots and gives you more healthier hair, which is less prone to breakage. It gives you lustrous hair. Obviously, it is retaining moisture. It's giving you more moisture to your hair. So it is giving you more lustrous hair. It prevents excessive brittleness and split ends. It also prevents flakes and dry scalp. Now, as Dr. Sushma had spoken about flakes and dry scalp, you have understood that there is some amount of dryness also that contributes to this. Oil removes that amount of dryness. All right, so you should use this. Now, as I said, that some people do not like to use oil plain. They want to use different things on their hair. So I will go on some naturopathy, and I am going to give you some other products that can be used for the hair. You can use egg for your hair. Now, egg is helps in getting softer hair and also helps if there is baldness. So it helps in new hair growth. Okay, but you should be extremely careful because you should wash this only with cold water. If you wash it with hot water, it's going to lead to some flakiness in the hair because egg omelette ban jayega. जो मस्ती में बोलते omelette ban jayega बाल में. So there will be some flakiness in the hair which will be left and it will be very difficult to remove that. So whenever you put egg, remember, wash it with cold water only, not even lukewarm, cold water. Then aloe vera. Fresh aloe vera gel. So if there is dandruff, there is some itchy scalp, it is going to help calm that down. Aloe vera is cooling. All right. So it will help calm itchy scalp. It also deep cleanses the scalp. It nourishes the hair. See, aloe vera has vitamin A, C, B12, and folic acid, which is an important nutrient for the hair. So it will also promote hair growth. So you can just break a twig of aloe vera if you have at your house, or you can pick it up from somewhere and just need to rub it across your scalp. Honey actually makes your hair very gives you a lot of moisture, makes your hair nice and greasy enough to look healthy. All right, but there is a disclaimer: honey lightens your hair, so be careful. If you're worried about premature graying of your hair, then avoid using honey. But otherwise, honey actually helps your hair as well as your skin. Then onion paste also helps in baldness. It helps clear the baldness and it promotes new hair growth. As I said, please do a skin test first before applying any of this on your head. Now I'm going to give you some quick hair pack recipes. Now this there is one where you beat the egg, you squeeze one lime juice, and you add a little oil. If your hair is not oiled, if you have already oiled your hair one night previously, then you just need to beat an egg and squeeze one juice of lime, beat it properly, keep it for 30 minutes and wash off with or without shampoo. This actually helps to smoothen your hair. And remember one thing, egg actually has a protein. So when you're putting egg in your hair, it gives a little straightening effect also. It makes your hair more straighter. Next is, okay, this I personally use. I mix 1 spoon of honey, 1 spoon of aloe vera gel, and 4 spoons of virgin coconut oil, which I showed. I apply it on the scalp and on the length of my hair. I leave it for 20 to 25 minutes. And then I wash it with shampoo and I condition it. Like normal, I just wash the entire product out and I condition it. This helps in smoother and straighter hair. Okay, right now I have not straightened my hair. This is just washed with honey, aloe vera, and coconut oil. For dandruff, this is also tried and tested. If you have dandruff, then what you are supposed to do is you can soak methi seeds, or you can say fenugreek seeds, overnight. Morning they become soft, you make a paste and you add 4 spoons of coconut oil to this. Apply it on the scalp, leave it for 30 minutes and wash it with shampoo and condition. All right, so this helps getting rid of the dandruff. Now, as Dr. Sushma had also highlighted, we need a balanced diet for good hair. All right, we need a good mix of proteins, carbohydrates, fats, minerals, fibers, water, vitamins, everything. All right, so some essential things that we need is vitamin A, B complex vitamin, vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin E, iron, zinc, and protein is very important. So if these things are in balance, then your hair will also be good. It will be thick. For this, I am giving you certain foods which will provide you these essential nutrients. Eggs, they have good amount of protein and biotin, so eggs are extremely important. So not only should you apply the eggs on your hair, you should also eat them. Eggs are extremely important. Berries, all types of berries give you antioxidants, which is very good for your hair. Spinach, fatty fish. Spinach gives you iron. Fatty fish, we have sweet potatoes, shrimp, nuts, all types of nuts, seeds like pumpkin seeds, and everything gives you nutrition. Beans, avocados, soya beans, meat, all of these foods give the nutrition that is important. Apart from this, you should definitely have around minimum 2 to 3 liters of water every day. You need to have at least 1 glass of milk every day, which is extremely important, which will give you good amount of hair. And yes, when your nutrients are perfect, your hair is going to be good. And that's it from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Anisha, for your useful tips and tricks on hair care. You're surely going to follow them. Please do follow our Facebook and Instagram page to gain access to more such knowledgeable content. So we hope this session was really helpful to every one of us. And if we do follow these tips and tricks shared by our doctors today, we are surely going to have a very healthy and beautiful skin and hair. So with this, we end our session. If you have any queries, please mail them to preeti@inchesgroup.in or put a WhatsApp message on 7045548825, and we'll surely get back to you on your queries. So you can also visit our website www.justeves.com for more information on wellness topics. Thank you, Dr. Sushma, Dr. Shrita, Dr. Anisha, for such a wonderful session. And thank you everyone for participating. Have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye-bye.